Your policymakers, teachers, practitioners or learners, managers of vocational education and training institutions, or whatever interests brought you here, it is excellence in vocational education and training we seek. We will go higher up with digital skills and those needed for a green economy. Higher up, that's where we plan to take you today and tomorrow. 1,600 people from all walks of life have actually put down their marker to participate today and tomorrow. And we welcome you all, those who've actually managed to sign on and are here with us now. We all know that the European labour markets and societies are undergoing rapid changes due to global developments like digital transitions, climate change, ecological and demographic changes, and last but not least, of course, due to the transitions caused by COVID-19. And don't actually need to mention that because each and every one of you is living in that environment that we call the new normal. However, as most of us are undergoing the second wave of coronavirus, I'm not quite sure it is part of our DNA yet. 8 months ago, most of us transferred to the digital world. We're all continually skilling up in a flash on digital demands of a different way of communication, of co-working, co-creating, and yes, ladies and gentlemen, of speaking and taking part at conferences. The one advantage is, of course, you can have more people, and it has become a two-way road. So you can see to the right of the live stream later on a box where you can leave your questions and answers, and where we will ask you to give us your opinion and your votes in some polls. By now, you probably know the way that Slido works. And of course, if you want to connect with some other participants of this conference, you can also do that. You will find underneath the live stream a button for resources and knowledge. And there you can use a matchmaking tool under the heading called networking. However, you actually have to sign in there in order to make it work. And last but not least, a couple of years we would have said the new social media. Meanwhile, it's standard. And of course, we'd love you to communicate about this event, about this week. And we have the one hashtag called Discover Your Talent, and the other hashtag is EU Vocational Skills. Now, having said all that, we are talking about our two-day event as both aspiration and encouragement. And we'll have later on a keynote speaker showing us the full range of future skills needed for the digital world, and the digital world that is almost there. And we have two panels where we're bringing together European vocational education experts with special answers to the challenges in COVID-19 times. And we will also learn from learners. But first and foremost, we will listen to the organizations that are behind that week and the two-day conference High Up. So there is, on one hand, the European Commission, in particular the Director General of Employment Affairs, Social Affairs and Inclusion, and that is, on the other, the German presidency of the Council of the EU. Let's start with Brussels. And with that, I would love to give the virtual floor to Joost Korte, Director General, DG Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion. Sir, take it away.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Chimo, for your kind introductory words and your enthusiastic words at the start of this important event. Dear colleagues, I'm very happy to be here with you, although I would, of course, have hoped, like many of you, to be physically able to meet. I have very good memories of the previous two European Skills Weeks, and of course the fun was also that we met and that you bumped into people you'd never seen before. Unfortunately, this is not possible, but we can do this also in a very, very good way through our digital means and the available technology. As we all know, COVID-19 is not only affecting the Skills Week. It's sadly infecting our entire economy. And if we look at the figures in the short term, the recovery prospects have in fact become more distant with each passing day, and the risk of a double-dip recession are increasing. Last week, the European Commission brought out its autumn forecast, and they are not good reading. It says that the unemployment rate stands at 7.5% and is likely to go up to 8.6% next year. And what is also quite telling is that the gross domestic product of the European Union economy as a whole is going to shrink by 7.4% in 2020. This is the biggest we've ever seen since data are being collected. So that's not good news. We are also all aware of the main challenges that are facing Europe, even before COVID-19, have not disappeared. On the contrary, they are becoming even more prominent. And here, of course, I'm talking about Europe's ambition to become the first climate neutral continent by 2050, and the fast pace of our digitalization, but also the rapidly aging society and our commitment to ensure that nobody is left behind in all these important and difficult transitions. At the level of the European Union and the member states, we are working very hard all together to address those dramatic challenges. Jobs will disappear, we know it, but new jobs will come. And for new jobs, also new skills are needed. And that's why the skills come in. I think they are now becoming even more important than they've ever been before. And it's also good to say at the start of this short introduction that the European Union has made available very substantial funding, really for the first time, also to make the necessary investments in the skills of the European citizens. The budget for 21-27, together with Next Generation EU, both of which have now been approved by Parliament and Council yesterday, you will have seen in the news, makes available very, very substantial sums. 1.8 trillion euros, which is, to me, a pretty meaningless amount. I'm sure it's a lot. But what is more telling, I think, is that this represents about 13% of Europe's GDP. So an investment of 13% of GDP is available for the next years. And the Commission has also prioritized in that funding the investment in reskilling and upskilling. It's in fact one of the 7 flagships to guide the member states' plans, which they're all drawing up now, the recovery and resilience plans. Our vocational education and training policy framework that we have discussed in 2020 and also very much under the leadership of the German presidency of the Council will really help the member states set the priorities for these reforms for the next 10 years. And I'd really like to appreciate my appreciation for the German presidency and Minister Karliczek in particular and her team for their dedication to carry this forward in very difficult circumstances. And not only the presidency, but of course also the member states, the social partners who play a very important role whenever we speak about skills and vocational education and training. And other important stakeholders have also helped us shaping this agenda, which is very ambitious. And let me give you a few examples. It needs to be ambitious because VET, for both young people and adults, will be instrumental to support the green and digital transitions, to help Europe face demographic change and aging, and also to answer to the swift changes on the labor market. The European Skills Agenda that was adopted by the European Commission in July of this year proposes several important acts. A Council recommendation on vocational education and training that has in fact by now already been adopted. And the negotiations in the Council have reassured us that no matter how diverse the VET systems are in the member states, in the 27 member states, our principles and objectives are the same. VET should cater for the skills needs of both young and adults. It should be very reactive to the needs of the labor market and the active participation in society, and it should be fully integrated into the economic, industrial and innovation strategies. At the same time, VET programs should embed of course, social and environmental sustainability. And it's the first time in the history of the European Union that we have a specific recommendation directed at vocational education and training. And that clearly, I think, underlines the importance that this policy area has in the European Union. Then in November, a bit later this month, we will also adopt the Osnabrück Declaration with the involvement of European social partners. That declaration, again, very much inspired and drawn up under the leadership of the German presidency, will define the more sort of concrete steps that have to be carried out at national and EU level between now and 2025, and very much based on the discussions that took place in the informal ministerial meeting in September. The timing of these high-level policy commitments is ideal, in fact, as we made an unprecedented amount of funding for VET and skills available, which I just mentioned. And my encouragement really is to everybody who listens that this should be taken up by the member states, and don't hesitate to ask for money that can be used to further boost your skills arrangements and your VET mechanisms. Today and tomorrow is about policymakers, practitioners and learners working together to make this shared vision on VET excellence a reality. I'm again very happy that I was here to open it. Now it's going to be really interesting with all the speakers and the workshops, and I wish you a very fruitful and highly interesting conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Korte, and of course, congratulations also on launching the Pact for Skills last night, which is, of course, a flagship initiative of the skills agenda of the Commission. Skills and vocational excellence are very much on the agenda of the German presidency of the European Council. And Mrs. Karliczek, the German Federal Minister of Education and Research, actually said at the beginning of the week, it is a means of continuing to ensure prosperity in Europe in the future. Having said that, having quoted her on this, we now have the pleasure of actually listening to her greeting remarks.
Meine sehr verehrten Damen und Herren, als diese Konferenz geplant wurde, hatten wir uns das, glaube ich, alle miteinander etwas anders vorgestellt. Wir dachten an Räume, in denen wir zusammenkommen und in denen wir dann auch in den Pausen noch weiter diskutieren können. Aber Corona hat uns einen Strich durch die Rechnung gemacht. Und deswegen treffen wir uns heute im virtuellen Raum. Aber inzwischen fühlen wir ja uns auch hier im virtuellen Raum fast wie zu Hause. Denn wichtig ist nicht mehr so sehr, wie wir zusammenkommen, sondern dass wir zusammenkommen. Dass wir miteinander reden können, dass wir die berufliche Bildung weiter nach vorne bringen können und damit eben auch die Startchancen von jungen Menschen in Europa verbessern können. Und in diesem Sinne darf ich Sie ganz herzlich willkommen heißen zur Europäischen Fachkonferenz zur beruflichen Bildung. Die Corona-Krise hat unser aller Arbeitsleben auf den Kopf gestellt und damit natürlich auch die berufliche Bildung. Aber ich bin zutiefst überzeugt, wenn wir es jetzt richtig machen, dann können wir alle gestärkt aus der Krise hervorgehen. Denn die Krise ist am Ende auch eine Chance für Innovationen, für Veränderungen, die längst überfällig sind. Lassen Sie uns gemeinsam diese Chance nutzen und in Europa noch näher zusammenrücken. Lassen Sie uns gemeinsam Ziele und Initiativen entwickeln, um die Berufsbildungssysteme in ganz Europa zu stärken und widerstandsfähig zu machen. Einen wichtigen Prozess haben wir beim Ministertreffen in Osnabrück angestoßen, mit der Osnabrück-Erklärung. Wir wollen damit eine innovative und flexible europäische Berufsbildung entwickeln und eine neue Kultur der Weiterbildung schaffen. Für Deutschland ist das ein ganz zentraler Schwerpunkt der EU-Ratspräsidentschaft. Und für mich persönlich ein ganz, ganz wichtiges Anliegen, denn ich weiß aus eigener Erfahrung, wie wertvoll berufliche Bildung ist. Und ich habe selbst zunächst mit 2 Berufsausbildungen begonnen, bevor ich dann im Anschluss noch ein Studium draufgesetzt habe. Und von all den Erfahrungen, die ich in dieser Zeit machen konnte, profitiere ich bis heute. Und deswegen werde ich nicht müde, immer und immer wieder zu betonen, berufliche und akademische Bildung sind gleichwertige Wege zum beruflichen Erfolg. Wir brauchen noch mehr Durchlässigkeit zwischen beiden Systemen und ein Zusammenwachsen der Systeme. Und wir wollen die höher qualifizierende berufliche Bildung stärker ausbauen. In Deutschland sind wir stolz auf die Erfolge der dualen Ausbildung. Sie ist gerade hier bei uns in Deutschland ein ganz wesentlicher Faktor für die geringe Jugendarbeitslosigkeit und damit natürlich auch die Grundlage unserer Wirtschaftskraft. Sie garantiert den Unternehmen qualifizierte Arbeitnehmerinnen und Arbeitnehmer, den Auszubildenden gute Jobperspektiven und der gesamten Gesellschaft eine hohe Dynamik und Flexibilität im Wandel. Ihre große Stärke ist die Nähe zur Praxis. Ändert sich die berufliche Praxis, können Ausbilder schnell reagieren. Auszubildende sind damit immer am Puls der Zeit. Voraussetzung dafür ist allerdings, die Rahmenbedingungen der Ausbildung müssen auch am Puls der Zeit sein. Und das ist unsere Aufgabe. Wir müssen die berufliche Bildung weiter modernisieren. In ganz Europa. Und dabei spielt die Digitalisierung die zentrale Rolle. Folgerichtig ist sie einer der Schwerpunkte dieser Konferenz. Ohne Digitalisierung könnten wir sie heute gar nicht durchführen. Ohne Digitalisierung könnten viele in diesen Tagen nicht arbeiten. Ohne Digitalisierung hätten die Schulen während des Shutdowns gar keinen Unterricht mehr anbieten können. Aber gerade die Pandemie hat uns sehr deutlich vor Augen geführt, dass wir in Sachen Digitalisierung noch lange nicht da sind, wo wir sein sollten oder müssten. Auch nicht die beruflichen Schulen. Wir brauchen gut ausgestattete Berufsschulen mit modernen und auch digitalen Lehr- und Lernprogrammen. Und nur dann kann die berufliche Bildung jungen Menschen die Werkzeuge an die Hand geben, die sie brauchen, um in einer digitalisierten Arbeitswelt zu bestehen. Aber es geht nicht nur um die Jungen, es geht auch um die Aufgabe der beruflichen Bildung, ältere Arbeitnehmerinnen und Arbeitnehmer zu ertüchtigen, mit den Veränderungen der Arbeitswelt Schritt halten zu können. Auch dafür brauchen wir eine ganz neue Weiterbildungskultur. Lebensbegleitendes Lernen ist das Stichwort dieser Tage. Um über das große Potenzial, das sich daraus ergibt, darüber möchten wir auch auf dieser Konferenz diskutieren. Und zur Modernisierung der Ausbildung gehört auch ein zweites Thema, das Thema Nachhaltigkeit. Die jungen Menschen zeigen es ganz deutlich. Nachhaltigkeit und Klimaschutz sind ihre zentralen Anliegen und das muss sich natürlich auch in einer modernen Berufsausbildung widerspiegeln. Und deshalb wollen wir nachhaltiges Handeln in allen Berufen verankern. Ressourcenverbrauch, umweltschonende Verfahren, Recyclingmodelle, Energieeffizienz. All das muss in der Ausbildung auch eine Rolle spielen. Das erwarten junge Auszubildende heute von uns sehr selbstverständlich. Und meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren, Innovationen entwickelt man, wenn viele unterschiedliche Talente zusammenwirken. Beruflich gebildete, akademisch gebildete, beruflich und akademisch gebildete. Lassen Sie uns jetzt Ideen austauschen. Lassen Sie uns gemeinsam daran arbeiten, die Berufsausbildung in ganz Europa zu modernisieren. Für gute Startchancen für unsere jungen Menschen, für ein wettbewerbsfähiges Europa, für Wohlstand und Zusammenhalt auf unserem Kontinent.
Thank you, Mr. Minister Karliczek, for these inspirational words and for spelling out some of the pathways Europe should take if it wants to achieve its goals, economically, ecologically, socially, and mindful of the planetary boundaries. In other words, and as part of EU's Green Deal framework, to give room for creative brains and skilled hands to master the green and digital transitions. That last sentence was a quote from Commissioner Nicholas Schmit at the beginning of this week. Knowing that there are strong links between recovery, digitization, the green transition, and vet excellence is one thing. To know exactly what is needed is another. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're moving to our first session in Higher Up. How digitization and the need for a green transition is changing the labor market and understanding of the world of work. Before we will discuss with experts, we're going to deep dive in our first keynote. And with that, I'd like to introduce Professor Dr. Günter Uhrlich, who is deeply steeped in the digital world and a human resource expert at the same time, advising several federal ministries alongside his day job at Phoenix Contact, the global market leader in electronic electronic connection technology. He will explain to us what his company of 18,000 employees is doing, is making a difference to our lives now and in the future. And Professor Olaf has also been named one of the top HR managers in Germany several years running by diverse institutions. So he's probably the best person to merge the two worlds and to give us solid advice. So with that, I'd love to invite Professor Olaf to share his keynote with us.
Thank you, Connie. Thank you, Connie. Yeah, for me, it's a really great honor to hold this keynote speech today in this very important Congress. And yes, that's a very important, really unbelievable important topic, how digitalization and the need for green transition will transfer the world in another century. And now I would like to start with the screens. Thanks. We have two big challenges in my topic, digitalization and green transition. But today we have also a third. Challenge we will defeat. That is my conviction. We will defeat Corona because our medics are in the process of developing a successful vaccine. And that is my conviction that in 1 year, we will have defeated Corona. So Corona is a challenge, but a short-term challenge for 1 year, perhaps 1.5 years. But the digitalization on the other side and the green technology, that is a long-term. I think we will need 10 years or more to change the world in a new world. And at first, that is my next slide, please. The digitalization is a big challenge for us, for human being, because it will bring us in a new future. And also the next slide, the climate change. We have young people who are highly engaged in politics and in new thoughts that they say it is very important to improve the environment, to improve the climate. And they pressure us, the old guys, they pressure us and the government to change the attitude for our environment, to change our attitude for a better climate. That is also very important, but both belongs together because we need the digitalization also for the change in the green technology. Both is very important. Please, the next slide. Our company is working and is concerning with both of these issues, climate change and also the digital transition. Among other things, we develop products for windmills, for example, green technology, for renewable energy, for example, for smart cities and electromobility, such as fast charging station. You can see it on the right picture here. We develop fast charging system because for the e-mobility it's very important if you want to drive for a long distance for 500, 600 kilometers. You need fast charging system because it's not possible to charge the car for 8 hours. That's not possible. You will to continue your drive, and so fast charging systems are very important. We are developing, we are producing, and we are marketing this fast charging system you can see in the future everywhere. So we are working in the topics of green technology and digitalization. Both belong together. Please, the next slide. But we have a big challenge. Because digitalization is not a measurable target. And if you cannot measure a target, that make people feel insecure because some believe they will lose their job. You can read a lot about digitalization that a lot of jobs we will lose, but I don't believe in it. Please, the next chart. Okay, the people feel insecure in front of the digitalization. But remember, more than 100 years ago, Henry Ford presented his first car, Tin Lizzie, on the American streets. And all the coachmen said, oh, we don't want this car. We don't want this car. We will lose our job. We will lose our job. We don't want to lose our job. But they didn't lose the job. They didn't lose the job. They became taxi driver. They became truck driver. But they must be qualified. They had to be qualified. They had to make a driving license. And so the key for this transition was qualification. And that is also the topic of our Congress today. So if people fear insecure because they don't know the future, it is our task, the task of leaders, of executive, of politicians and teachers to give the people courage for the future, to encourage the people for the future. Like, please, the next slide, like this man on the left side, Christoph Columbus, did it long before. He entered a new country without knowing what dangers and challenges he would face. He didn't know it, but he did it. He went on a new country. Or 51 years ago, Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon. He was the first person to step on the moon without knowing what danger and challenge he was facing. The people had no experience, but he did it. He was encouraged to do it, to find new ways. But both did it. Yes, both did it. And this courage, ladies and gentlemen, this courage and this motivation should also fill us to go towards digitalization and green technology. And it's up to us, to the leaders, to the managers, to the executive, to the politicians, to the teachers. It's our task to encourage people to go this new way. Please, the next line. To go a new way means to follow a vision. Visions are very important for us. Visions are like stars. You possibly never reach them, but they always serve as an orientation for us. The North Star, that is an orientation for years for mankind. That is our orientation. And we have to give us a North Star, a vision for digitalization, a vision for the green tech transition. We have to give us. Every organization have to give themselves a vision. Every school, every company, that is very important. Please, the next slide. Visionary management is so important. Why? You know this man, Elon Musk. He formulated 15 years ago the vision of electrifying cars. The traditional automotive industry, for example, also in Germany, they laughed at him. They smiled at him. That's not possible. Oh, that's crazy to do this. Today, ladies and gentlemen, with this vision of Elon Musk, Tesla is the most valuable automobile company in the world. The most valuable. That is the message. A vision makes you strong to create a future, to create a new future. And that is the power of visions. They give us energy to create incredible things for the future. Also, when we defeat, for example, as you know, Steve Jobs, he was dismissed from his company. His people didn't believe in his ideas. And then, 12 years ago, he presented the first iPhone. And that was also a new technology. And it changed the world totally. But the power of vision gave him the strength. And from him is the sentence well known. It's not a shame to fall. It's only a shame not to get up. So we should try new ways. And perhaps we will have a defeat. Yes, but then we have to get up and go new ways, other ways, but go ahead. And for example, please, the next slide. Also, Phoenix Contact, we have also a vision for our company. I will not explain in detail this vision now, but the message is every company, every organization should formulate a vision for himself, where it will be in 10 or 20 years. That means a vision. Where do you want to be in 10 or 20 years? And then you have to ask yourself, what can you contribution for this future? The contribution of your company, of your school, and so on. That is the second question. So, where will be the world in 10 or 20 years? And what is your contribution? That is an important message. Okay, we have a lot of new challenges for our people. Please, the next slide. New challenges for our people. We have to develop a digital culture. The digital culture describes the attitude of our employees, of our people, for the topic of digitalization, but also for the topic of green technology. That is important. The attitude. We have to start with our attitude. We must have a positive attitude. When we are against it, that will be very difficult. So we have to develop a positive attitude, like Elon Musk with electrifying the cars. Yes, we have to do it the same way. Then, secondly, the digital competence. Yes, we need a new competence of our employees about new technology and the ability to deal with them, to deal with green technology also. So qualification will be a key for it. Then, thirdly, digital leadership. There will be new demands on leadership culture and behavior in the context of digitalization. For example, today, we have Corona. We send our people in the mobile office at home. We have to give them trust now, trust that they will work successful for us, for the company. Fourthly, the digital work. Now we're experiencing it. It's changing. We are using these digital devices to communicate now. That will be also in the future. I hope that we have also one-to-one discussion in the future, but it is a new kind of technology we will also use in the future. New forms of work through modern communication technology will enable also flexibility. The next slide, please. Mobile working. Mobile working is very successful, you can say, really very successful. Because there we can develop more creativity of the people. Because you cannot be creative if you start your job in the office at Monday morning. Perhaps you were creative on Sunday in the evening or Saturday in the morning. So you should use more time for creativity, and perhaps at Monday you will stay at home. It's okay. It's okay. Creativity, we can develop it more with mobile working. Then we have also the opportunity of more balance between work and private life. We can balance it more. That is also a big freedom for the employees. And other advantages for the employees. Also, the companies have big advantages. Less operating costs for the companies. That is also a big advantage. But the precondition for all that mobile working will work, is a culture of trust. Because today the leaders cannot control the employees while they are working in their home office. They cannot control them. They have to spend trust. My personal experience in the last 40 working years, when I spend trust to the people, I get trust back by the most people. And so that's also the reason why the economy is, okay, not growing so fast, but we are working very well in this home office. Okay, I hope sometimes in 1 year we will return to a normal working life, but it is a chance also. We will have also big advantages for the future. But culture of trust is a very important precondition. Next slide, please. Digital communication. There are also big advantages. For example, you see less travel. We have not to travel now. Lower costs, less traffic jams, less stress too, and less pollution. less pollution. That is also a small step to the green transition. For example, we need less fuel consumption. It's currently protecting the environment. And Corona forced us to do it. That is one of the few advantages also of Corona. It would have, that's my conviction, it would have taken us 5 or 10 years to implement the new working methods with the support of digitalization. Now we only need a half year. That is a really great acceleration. Ladies and gentlemen, please, the next slide. One important message is develop for your organization, for your company, for your school, for your university, develop your vision for digitalization and the need of green transition. It's up to you. It's up to you. It's up to every organization, every university, every school, every company to formulate the North Star for the future of our organization. And now the last slide, the conclusion and the summary is we need 4 important topics. At first, like I mentioned before, to formulate a strong vision. A strong vision gives us an orientation for our future. And it will make us strong against defeat to have a strong vision. Secondly, information. Give people a lot of information about all the steps into the future. This reduces the fear of uncertainty, and the people will follow you. Thirdly, participation. Participation is very important. Let the people take part in shaping the future together. We can achieve it only together. Participation is also very important. And the fourth and last point, qualification. Offer good qualification opportunities so that the people can master the challenges of the future. That is very important. And I'm convinced, ladies and gentlemen, we have all chances to achieve a really good world also in the future. I believe in people. I believe in you. I believe in you, the teachers, the people who are highly engaged in this way. I believe in you. We will achieve the success. That's my conviction. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for sharing, above all, your enthusiasm, and I think your very positive outlook. Now, that might have actually contributed to Phoenix's rise from, what did you say, 800 people to 18,000 right now. There are a number of questions we're already getting in, so thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for sending your questions in. The vision seems to be extremely important in the way that you've outlined the future and what one needs. Yet there needs to be a certain skill set, and the skill sets that are changing. So following the vision, how do we identify the exact skill sets that are now needed for the green economy, for the digital economy, and for the two that are meeting and hopefully digital helping us to survive?
I think it's very important at first to develop the right attitudes in the people, to make it open-minded. Because yes, today the people have some fear in front of the future, because we know the past, what happened, but we don't know the future. And there the people feel uncertainty. We have to give them a good feeling for the future. When you see, ladies and gentlemen, when you see in YouTube, Steve Jobs, when he presented the first iPhone, he believed in it. He was really inspired, and he inspired all his people of this product. He didn't know whether it's successful. Today we know it. But when he started 11 years ago, only 11 years ago, he believed in it. So that is very important. We don't know the future, but we need for the future hope, belief, conviction. These 3 points. When we develop these 3 points in our people, then they will be able and motivated also to learn, to go new ways. We have to reduce uncertainty. We have to reduce fear and to inspire for the future. Like I mentioned before, like Christopher Columbus did it, and so on, so many people, Neil Armstrong, I mentioned it before, Elon Musk, and so on. Also, Bill Gates, for example, he had the vision, you remember, 45 years ago, in every house, 1 computer. Okay, it's not wrong, they have 4 computers till 6 computers per house. But it's very important to have this vision. And he achieved that his people followed him. And so the precondition for successful learning is the attitude. We train, for example, not only the knowledge, we train the attitude. The attitude of the people to go new ways. Then they are also prepared and they are open-minded to new skills, to learn new know-how.
Thank you very much, Professor Orlish. And I actually see that our audience, I don't know how many 100 people there are there, but they're actually liking your energy and your positive attitude. Now, a couple of questions like, if you work from home, you work more at home. Is it harder to switch from work to family? That again is maybe not so much about skills, but maybe it is a skill to combine these 2 environments that were more separate before?
Yeah. Yes, that is really a big challenge because we had no experiences in this way to merge family and work. But when you are in your home, in your office, you cannot say to your child, be quiet and so on. That's not possible. You have to manage more your life, your private life and your working life. You have to manage more. Yes, it's a challenge. Perhaps it's a high challenge. I'm convinced that 20% of our home office will stay also in the future after Corona. 80% will come back because I like also to work at home. I like my home. But sometimes it's also very interesting and nice to speak with colleagues, to speak about other topics than family topics. And so, but I'm convinced 20% home office will stay, and then the majority will go back in the office. Because it's also important that we have this personal contact to human being. That is very important for us as men and women. And also, you want to get the information about unofficial information of the company. You can read the official company information in the intranet of the company, but not the unofficial. And I think the unofficial information is also very important to make a successful job. So you have to merge both. That is the new challenge. But also in the future, it will stay a challenge for us to merge both together. Not so hard like today, like I mentioned before, 20-80%, but we have to mention it also in the future.
When I talk to some people who are more in the position of train the trainers, they actually mentioned that in the situation of today, other capabilities come to the fore. Like beforehand, forgive me, we had to have sort of leadership people like Steve Jobs or others like him, people who are enigmatic and whatever. But in order to get the job done, in order to actually get a team together, it's not the one person sort of going ahead and dragging everybody. It is different skills. How do you teach that? I mean, if it's not inert in the people, how do you actually sort of make people aware? How do you teach it?
We teach, for example, our leaders to be a soccer trainer. To be a soccer trainer. A soccer trainer, what is the task of a soccer trainer? He has to formulate a goal. 5 years ago, Jogi Löw said, we want to be the number 1 in football in the world 5 years ago. That was his vision. Then his task is to select the people, to hire the people and select the people who are fitting together. Then he has to train the soccer player. And then he has to create a team with these individuals to develop a team. And then he has to inspire people that they believe they can win. Because during the game, he can do nothing. He's standing outside. And if his team will lose, it's his mistake. The mistake of the trainer or the manager. So that will be the task of tomorrow. To stand outside. You cannot, as the manager, you cannot play together with your team because they are sitting everywhere in the world. But you have to select them, you have to train them, you have to inspire them to create a team. Then when the task will come, the team must be successful. And it depends on a good coach, on a good trainer, on a good manager.
Thank you very much again. We have a number of other questions and some are a bit more concrete. Let's talk again about this merging of skill sets that are necessary to manage our digitization and green economy. There's, for example, one question about port and maritime sector. Also, that particular sector is getting more digital. Again, what skills are needed? I mean, with all enthusiasm, you still need to work with computer interfaces. You need to understand the underlying processes. You might not actually have to shift any weights, but you're shifting other things. So we do also have to have some concrete skills, don't we?
Abstraction, that is very important because if you work with a computer, you have no reaction, direct reaction like when you're working together with human beings. And the digitalization means you have to work more abstract because what you give in the computer, you cannot watch it, what will happen with it. You see the result. If you work together with people, you see their result. If they agree to your speech or not, the computer will give you no answer. And so you have to work more in this abstract way, and be also satisfied with it. Because a lot of people want to work close together with other people. The digitalization will give us a new way. For example, artificial intelligence, for example, it will work for us. We are human beings which will give the computer to start with an idea, not we develop the idea. The computer will start it in the future. So our task will be to formulate the computer, a task, a vision, a strategy, and then watch the computer, what he is doing at the end, or not only at the end, you have to make milestones to see, is this on the right way? But we cannot see it directly like you will work together with people. That will be a change, but not a change which is total, because we'll work also with people together. But it's a new attitude, a new situation we have to learn. We have to learn with it. I think, I watch it by the young generation. They are born with these devices here. They have not the problems like the people perhaps in our age. Our children explain us how it's working, not we. And that is our change. We, the older guys, have to be an open mind to this. And if we don't understand all in detail, then use the know-how of the young people for it. Yes, to collaborate, young people, young generation with the old generation. Together, we can be more successful.
Professor Ohlisch, I could listen to you all day and I could sort of do a lot more Q&As. And yes, there were more questions on the net. So thank you very much to each and everyone who's put some more questions in. And I'm just going to mirror them, but we don't have time to answer unless you have sort of a one-sentence answer. There's your company, 18,000 people, quite a big company. So what happens to small and medium-sized companies, especially the small-sized companies, 4 or 5 employees? How do you upskill them? There's also the question, of course, how do we bring those into the upskilling? And I'm not talking about the young people now, but I'm talking about those that have already been around, the older guys, but older in digital age already means 40, 50. So how do we bring those in? If you did have an almost one sentence answer on that, then I could still get a quick answer from you.
I give a suggestion. For example, our company, we have a big training center where we have per year 14,000 employees who are trained there. We give the small companies around us the opportunity to train their people also in our company, in digitalization, in new technology. So my suggestion is to the small companies, work in collaboration together with the big companies, which can offer you all these teaching methods, all these learning methods, e-learning, etc. Work together with them, collaborate.
Well, that's great. That was one answer. And later on in the panel discussion, we will actually have a lady representing an industry where exactly that is happening. Yeah. So again, Professor Wollers, I'm quite sure that you're available for any more questions via email, maybe the old-fashioned way, or maybe via Twitter. I'm quite sure that we can refer to you and to everybody else, ladies and gentlemen, as happens during normal conferences where we are face-to-face or body-to-body. The bodies have certain needs and they shall be looked after. So we have decided to give you a quick break. We'll be back at exactly 3 o'clock. That is in 9 minutes from now. So you set your clock, you do everything that you quickly need to do, and we get back and then into a panel discussion, a bit refreshed, and we also need your answers on Slido, but I'll explain about that in a moment. So see you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, Mr. Wollers.
Thank you too.
Okay, I have my video on.
Do you hear me at least? Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You've just seen the headline that we're going to be discussing right now. And again, we all know how drastically our world changed right about 9-8 months ago. And everybody's lives were different. But of course, it had a marked impact on the world of learning, on vocational education, on training, on the way it was set up, on the way the systems had been run up to then. And the weird thing is, of course, now more than ever, we need the right skills to master that fast transition that was put upon us, and quite a number of people have actually mastered it. The companies need people with certain, probably more digital skills. On the other hand, people need the right skills to actually get the jobs that are there, even though we have seen that the number of job openings has actually decreased. So we're in a fix, but our 4 experts will give us a view on how they are mastering the transition. And I'll just very briefly introduce them. But before I actually sort of mention their names, I would like you to know, that there is the stream in which you can give us your comments, your questions, and we would highly appreciate your questions for the panel session that we have set up now. And the second point is, of course, that you can meet up with other people in the conference if you go to the resources below the live stream. And at the beginning, I just want you to get ready. We would like to put a Slido question to you. Nevertheless, this is the Slido question, and very easily to be answered by each and every one of you. Has COVID-19 impacted your learning habit, and in which way has it impacted it? Do you learn more? Do you learn less? Or has it not impacted anything at all? And I do see that we have a number of people who are already in this session. Maybe a couple of other people might like to pick up the ball. 33 people is not the best outcome yet. However, I think there is a theme that is coming up. Might be because we are talking to the converted and to the convinced. We have a high majority of people who actually learn more than before. 2/3 at the moment of at least right at the moment, 77, 80 people are learning more. I would love our technicians to keep this Slido poll open for a couple of minutes whilst I do a very brief introduction of the 4 panelists that have been waiting on the line for quite a while now. So we'll come back to the Slido question. Athanasia Theodorido is Director of International Relations at OAED, Manpower Employment Organization in Greece. Wonderful that you are with us. Mario Patuzzi is Head of the Unit of Vet Policies at the German Trade Union Federation in Germany. Thank you very much for joining us. Amanda Rafter-Ekenmann is Head of Skills Department, and I'm not even going to start pronouncing the organization. Let it be known that it's an organization where skilled workers are put together in one grouping. And of course, Amanda is from Sweden. And last but not least, we have Professor Roberta Piazza, as a professor of the University of Catania in Italy. And those are our panelists that we're going to be discussing with right at the moment. And when I do or open this conference panel for the discussion, and there they are, Athanasia, you are actually working in a context of public employment services. So how did you weather COVID-19? In other words, how do public employment services help unemployed people to upskill and reskill in times of COVID-19, what measures are you putting in place to ensure that unemployed people are still having access to training?
Mhm. Thank you, Connie, and good afternoon to everyone. And sorry if you can't catch well my picture, maybe because of weak internet connection. This is really a very interesting question for all public employment services. And OAED is the Greek public employment service and is currently implementing various upskilling and reskilling measures aimed at the registered unemployed people, particularly in cutting-edge sectors. The aim for this is to eliminate, of course, the existing mismatches between the workforce skills and those actually required in the labor market. I must say here that it is a fact for Greece that upgrading the skills of the Greek workforce has been a challenge recognized, although unaddressed for many, many years. So the wide gap between labor force skills and education from one side and the current and future needs of the economy on the other side is one of the greatest weaknesses of the Greek education system. In pandemic period now, OAED, our organization, has adopted measures, of course, to curb the spread of COVID-19 and to protect public health, but also to ensure unhindered employment and vet services. So, first of all new users of OAED services can now register online using their taxes net access codes. That means they can access and use all OAED services, all our services, easily and directly without having to visit their local public employment service in order to have a special access code issued. Also, web services for online meetings, video conferences, and various online meeting tools have been extensively used by our staff, mainly with a view to avoiding physical meetings and conducting all OAED activities and services online. So starting from the first week of April, interviews with employment counselors are conducted online through remote online meeting services and devices. I am going to give you now some more specific examples of programs which have been implemented by our organization since the beginning of the pandemic, focusing on upskilling and reskilling of unemployed people. In general, several OAED training programs were transformed into online training or e-learning programs. A first example is an OAED program aimed at 3,000 unemployed graduates of post-secondary and tertiary education with computer skills and good command of English. This program was focused on digital marketing, providing 75 hours of online training. It proved very successful and very popular among unemployed persons. That's why after the completion of its first phase, a second phase was provided for a further 1,500 beneficiaries. This program is soon going to be followed by a subsidized employment program. It is also noteworthy that due to the current conditions, imposed of course by the pandemic, digital marketing has emerged as a highly demanded specialization in the Greek labor market. And that's why we decided to give this training to our unemployed people. A second example is the cooperation between OAED, between the Greek Public Employment Service and some universities through special memoranda of understanding. These universities have developed e-learning programs of very high quality, and OAED plans to offer to registered unemployed people in different categories the chance to choose from a wide range of these e-learning programs in highly demanded specialties. Several of these programs are soon going to be implemented, and the first one in November. A third example concerns the fact that OAED is going to start also in this month a new program for a large number of unemployed people who are going to be offered free access to a wide range of online training courses offered by a famous international e-learning platform. it's important that all these programs lead after the completion to a certification. And I must say here that OAED has extensively utilized its cooperation with large private IT companies within the context of their corporate social responsibility. In this context, yes?
You're running a bit alongside. We had actually sort of foreseen 3 minutes. So if you could just sort of wrap it up in one sentence.
Okay.
Just one more sentence, and I'll come back to you in a moment.
Yes. Can I continue?
Just one sentence, please.
Yes. Just a final example is an OAED entrepreneurship program aimed at young people aged 18 to 29 who wish to start their own business. And it is the first time that we offered entrepreneurship workshops and coaching services through online sessions. Moreover, a special IT application was developed, which is aimed at transforming a business idea into an effective business plan.
Thank you so much. And with that, I'd like to sort of switch over to Mario Patuzzi. Of course, we have the employers, and then, of course, we have the trade unions as those who are actually surrounding the labor market and therefore influencing how people are trained. So, Mario, what would you say did the unions do, maybe just in Germany, but maybe you also know what your colleagues did all over Europe, in the effort to reskill or to upskill whilst COVID-19 was going on?
Yeah, thank you, Connie, and good afternoon, everyone. Well, trade unions are now facing 3 developments. We expect the numbers of workers on short-time work or the numbers of unemployed to rise again this winter. And we fear, especially with in countries with dual wet systems, that the number of apprenticeship places will fall even more sharply than this year. And at the same time, we see that the COVID crisis is massively accelerating the transformation of the economy, but companies do not qualify systematically. And one must be aware that the majority of companies, for example, in Germany, do not yet have a digitization strategy and a systematic HR development. So the crisis acts like a burning glass, and we want to prevent the crisis from having, I would say, a boomerang effect on the situation of the employees. On the one hand, so our efforts are directed at preventing job cuts and instead encouraging employers to introduce an in-company or sectoral qualification strategy. Work councils and collective agreements in particular play here an important and decisive role. We are also committed in Germany, for example, to ensuring that short-time work is used to provide more and better training for employees. Companies with a functioning social partnership or social dialogue are much more successful to facilitate a change towards sustainable HR development, for example. But it is important not to restrict the focus to short-term training measures. For this reason, the National Skills Strategy, where the federal government, the Länder, trade unions and employers association working together already ensured last year that public funding for retraining and substantial further training measures leading to qualifications in higher VET was massively expanded. And at least I want to come to apprenticeship. We are also very concerned about the precarious situation on the apprenticeship market. And we now have a joint declaration of the Alliance for Training and Further Training in Germany with social partner support. and we developed a program for securing apprenticeship places during the Corona crisis. The most important elements are here: takeover of apprenticeships or apprentices from insolvent companies, support for small and medium-sized enterprises if they maintain and expand apprenticeship places, especially if they are affected by short-term working. And in this way, we hope to prevent at least a dramatic decline in the number of apprenticeships and to offer young people a good perspective in the labor market.
Thank you, Mario, for coming to an end. Just to let you know, ladies and gentlemen, we had agreed sort of a 3-minute input and not really much longer. So thanks for almost sticking to time. And I'd like to make the transition to Amanda Rafter-Ekenman. When I said goodbye to Professor Orlish, I actually said that we were going to talk to a lady representing an industry that has already come up with a solution. The people that have come up with a solution, like getting together in for example, installation industry. And of course, installation industry is small to medium-sized companies, not big companies. And you have found solutions for that. So Amanda, could you share with us how employers can actually support their employees in upskilling and reskilling, of course, in COVID-19 times? And maybe could you switch on your camera as well?
Can you see me now?
Yeah. Yes, fantastic.
Perfect. Yeah, as you heard, the labor market is changing, and this is not something new. Re and upskilling are necessary to face changes in the labor market, particularly in terms of green and digital. And the company's ability to change, innovate, and update skills will be crucial, both for the company's competitiveness, but also for the individual's possibilities in the labor market. So, as you all said, competence is key, or queen, as I would say. And at the same time, I want to point out, it's all about cost of benefits. Will this investment from my company pay back? So this is something big and also small companies are handling in everyday life. I represent the sector of companies who perform technical installations in a building or a city. They make the green transformation possible through systems with smart technologies, electrification, and more efficient use of energy. Somebody has to install all of this that you're talking about. Many business opportunities are on the rise, ready to be seized. And of course, new skills will be needed. But our members are small, usually micro companies with up to 10 employees, with two challenges: tight marginals and also a hard time to see the benefits of educating their best installer and temporarily make him or her unproductive. So it's easier just to hire a new one. But we need to educate the workforce we already have. Let me take some examples. We have Scania that produces trucks, shifts from digital to robotics in their production. They did a big internal program for educating their mechanics to CNC operators. So in 16 weeks, they just transformed their own employees into the new skills. It's a win-win situation. The employee keep their jobs, the company got needed competence, as well as they kept long and valuable experience held by their own loyal employees. Other examples of smaller companies within my own sector, typically about 20 employees, owned by the same family for 100 years, and not so keen about changing their traditional ways of culture. By just making a flat organization, hiring a new human resources, gaps in competence within the company became suddenly clear, and they could just manage them and making a culture for competence and upskilling. So in short, as also Mario Patuzzi said, you need to make competence a part of your business plan. And you should do it together with your employees to make also the attitude a part of it, to be open for new attitudes, as also Olish said. So I can actually stay there, so we get for a tight on time.
Wonderful. Thank you very much to be mindful of that. And with that, I thank you very much. We come back to that example, and maybe also, again, how you switch minds and switch hearts, and how you get somebody that was basically a mechanic be competent and working brilliantly with devices that were not part of his original training, or her original training. So we'll get back to you. I'd love to introduce Professor Piazza. Roberta, I'm quite sure that looking at everything that's going on, you have seen that some vocational training providers have adapted fast, and you've seen others that haven't done anything. Could you share with us what was the message or the method of those that were actually doing well?
Yes, thank you, Connie. Let me say that while remote learning has offered some educational continuity, when it comes to vocational education and training has been particularly hard hit by the crisis. And compared to general programs, vocational and training programs are suffering a double disadvantage. The social distancing requirements and the closure of enterprises that have made the practical and work-based learning difficult or impossible. So whether they are school-based or combined school and work-based programs, practical teaching forms an important part of the vocational education and training curricula. In some countries, the work-based component can account for more than 60% of total learning time. And vocational and training programs can rely on practical training such as agriculture, health, engineering, construction, and craft, are struggling the most to adjust to remote learning. Even in cases where practical training can be simulated remotely, the learning experience is more limited. Although the pandemic has created a considerable uncertainty over what will happen next, vocational and training providers adapted or try to adapt their activities in different ways. All countries have set up online environments, ranging from using very simple messaging services or other more elaborate IT learning platforms, or maybe using national television for broadcasting or replacing usual classroom lessons. Some countries have developed TV and YouTube channels for learners to follow general and vocational and training lessons. Teachers and trainers recorded their lessons on video and broadcast them. In most cases, these activities focus almost exclusively on theoretical knowledge. Just in few cases, demonstrations in videos or step-by-step instruction were used to show the more practical skills linked to a specific profession. To foster team cooperation, there are many examples of group tasks assigned to learners if the observation of their soft skill is made very difficult in distance learning. Often, practical training has been shortened or, when possible, postponed. In some countries, alternatives have been found, like project work or simulated demonstrations. Lists of different resources collected have been created. Many general collaboration tools exist, which are available in several languages, as well as many platforms that facilitate the creation of digital content. However, there are few cases of online vocational specific material. Some countries have shared vocational and training specific content. Really few others invited teachers, employers, and other stakeholders to develop and share the digital education materials related to vocational subject. Not much more. On the positive side, this extraordinary situation can be seen as an opportunity for the vocational and training system to develop or deepen digital skills. However, it also underlines the digital divide and the inequality and the disadvantage this creates for learners that do not have access to computer or internet. Okay.
That's lovely. Thank you very much, Roberta. Of course, we have a number of other questions, and of course, the responses that you have described are, of course, directed to an audience or to trainees, to coachees that actually have internet access. And I'd like to, in the second round, to address the issue of those that are sort of not as well equipped with any kind of device or with the proper access to the digital world. Let me go back to Athanasia, and there are the first questions already coming in. So maybe Athanasia, this time you could just sort of say it in a more sort of pinpointed way. You said that there is also a part in Greece that is looking after schools. How do you deal with the schooling and the implementation of the dual VET system there?
Mm-hmm. Yes. It's true that the Greek Public Employment Service, except of its main role, of course, which is to enhance employment and combat unemployment, plays also a significant role in the sector of vocational education and training in Greece. Is the main public body which offers dual apprenticeship system through 50 apprenticeship schools all over Greece. Except the dual system, as you know, combines the theoretical lessons at school with the on-the-job training in the enterprises, and has been established that it facilitates the transition from school to the labor market. So during the COVID period and up to now, of course, the operation of all our VET schools and vocational institutes was suspended in March 2020 for about 2 months, and again now in November 2020 until, of course, God knows when. During the lockdown, OAED collaborated with a leading multinational IT company within, again, the context of its corporate social responsibility in providing free synchronous and asynchronous online education and training for the students of all our schools. This online education initiative has had a valuable impact on OAED's VET programs, and that's why we aim at further developing and utilizing online education and training tools in our VET schools in general. So these online learning courses that we have adapted will continue to be part of the school's curricula, depending, of course, on the schools and students' needs and requirements.
Thank you. And all I wanted to say is I already have a couple of other questions for you afterwards. So again, if you could wrap it up. So it seems like you have, apart from when everything is in lockdown, you have a solution in place.
We try to find an alternative way of teaching our students in order not to leave somebody behind in this crisis.
Thank you so much. I'd also like you to address in the next round maybe the question of the finances, because, of course, we've heard earlier from the EU Commission that, of course, there is a hell of a lot of money that's going to be out there to be drawn upon in order to finance courses like that. Let me ask you later about the transfer of those finances. So I'd like to go back to Mario. And again, of course, as trade unions, it's not your role to provide training, but it is your role to enable workers to expand upon their skills, to have better job opportunities. And you were just sharing with us, just like Athanasia, that the vocational training for young people is this year very much in danger. So what would be your advice to both the young and to those that need to reskill?
Thank you, Connie. I would advise young people and also workers to seek advice first. For young people, employment agencies have the function of advisors, and workers can go to their employers' HR departments and, of course, to the Work Council as first point of contact here. We have also good experiences with mentoring projects, encouraging workers, but also encouraging young people. In any case, counseling is the decisive factor. And if you want to develop or start your professional career, and this is why we need more resources for counseling provisions, especially in the employment services. But second point, maybe it depends also a lot on support systems. Especially collective agreements are a good starting point for apprenticeships and also for employees. But if this is not the case, or in any case, good funding systems and the right to training leave, the right to training time is also needed so that employees and also young people can develop them in a, I would say, in a self-determined way. It's not about what the employer wants, it's also about what the employees, the workers, and the young people want.
Even though there has been a law in existence now in the last 2 years in Germany actually giving that right to workers, but still it's probably just also a kind of negotiation, because otherwise you might get your training, but you lose your job.
It's an entitlement, and it's, as in every European country, you have to implement this entitlement, and that's a little bit difficult, I would say, because for this entitlement, the employment agencies are in the remit, and at the moment, they are heavily overloaded. And in particular, the issue of training vouchers is not going well at the moment, and that means that training measures cannot be carried out at the moment. And this is something we have to take with us as a lesson learned. Authorities and agencies must become much more flexible and faster in the future and see themselves as service provider for the citizens.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Mario, for that exclamation mark that you've just made. Let me turn over to Amanda again. Amanda, you have actually been describing that you are doing upskilling across the industry and how you do it. I asked you, about the practical implications. I mean, how you turn a manual working person to a digital mind. But the other question is also, how can you make sure that openings that are in one industry can be filled with people from other industries like yours?
Yes, thank you. As you see, we have been working for this in our sector for a long time. We have our own educational center within the electrical and installation sector, and this is a place for reskilling and career changing, and we can see especially people that are out of jobs in other sectors can come to our sector, especially women that we are missing in our sector. So this is one good way. You can also use this educational center to educate staff in companies that do not have so much to do right now, that are still going on with the help of support from the government. So it's time for develop their skills and maybe come stronger out after the crisis. But for sectors that are being hit harder than my own sector, there are several initiatives of reorganizing workforce that lost their jobs in one sector to another. One example is the Skill Shift initiative, which we call Beredskapslyftet in Swedish. It's a mobilization of available human resources to support Swedish healthcare providers to tackle the coronavirus. So people in the flight industry or the restaurant or hotel industry can reskill to help in healthcare or helping care of the elderly, for example. And this has been a great success. Another example is reorganizing.
One more example, and then we'll move on. One more example is fine.
Small reorganizing staff within your sector. So maybe in one shop that doesn't have so much customers can lend out their staff to online shops. So this has also been done. So how can we use the staff we already have? Some examples.
Fantastic. Thank you, Amanda. And again, I'll turn over to Italy. Roberta, I was just already sort of throwing the question to you before we left. And that question is about those who are not digitally equipped like all of us seem to be at home, albeit with a couple of problems maybe, internet connection, devices, laptop, iPad, or you have it. There are people who do not have access to that. How do we get them in? Or where do you see that strategies are working to get them in?
Okay. Yes. Okay. What we have seen is that there is, of course, a great awareness of the need of improving the use of technology in education and training at all the levels, and we need to adapt pedagogies to develop digital skills. So, what we need to help people that are struggling to learn, to study during this difficult time is to provide much more help we can. Firstly, to boost the digital skills of educators, because what we need is to implement effective and inclusive distance and blended learning. So we need to have guidance in certainly areas, as for example assessment. That is very challenging for students and for trainers. And of course, all these different approaches, they vary between and within countries, and but also across different levels and sectors of education and training, because these reflect different levels of digital maturity in different parts of the system. So we are witnessing many difficulties for a lot of people, considering people with disabilities, for example, that they are struggling accessing to technology and digital education materials. Also adult learning providers that saw large number of students dropping out from courses because they don't have digital tools, digital equipment, and so on. So experiences from this period show that education and training system, they should invest more in digital capacity, and that education and training those education and training systems that previously invested more in their digital capacity were better prepared to adapt teaching technologies to these new needs.
Thank you very much. And as I said, I'm already getting in a couple of questions. Can I just stay with you, Roberta? Again, you sort of have the eagle's view. And there's one very concrete question. Which methods did you see or tools or programs of skilling up are showing positive results? Is it boot camps? Is it micro credentials? You name it. What is working? What is maybe a low-hanging fruit?
Okay, generally speaking, we can say that all the active methodologies could foster learning activities in these cases. Because what we know is that most stakeholders are providing alternative learning opportunities to compensate the crisis of the education services. Many efforts have been made to overcome shortcomings and minimize this digital divide. It is a problem related to gender, to generation, and to geographic position of the people. So what we can say is that we need to focus more on practical activities, whatever this is very difficult doing in a distance, but to foster this cooperation, we can try to create some group tasks that could help more students learning while doing things. And also the online vocational material. This is a very great problem, because not always all the online vocational material is specific for this kind of learning. But there are a lot of support, a lot of different resources collected, they have been created. So we can rely to this tool and try to adapt to these different circumstances or settings.
Great, thank you very much, Roberta. I'd like to go back to Athanasia, and one of the questions that we had coming in is a bit more specific, but I already left you with a question about the finance. Is good upskilling in COVID-19 time a question of finance and therefore access maybe to EU finance, or is it something that is more depending on access to the proper trainers, access to digital equipment?
Concerning the programs that I described before, yes. I say that it depends on the program. For example, we have some programs co-funded by the European Union, by ESF. For example, this entrepreneurship program that I described before, aimed at the young people aged 18 to 29. All the development of the IT application and also the financing of the young people in order to start their own business. All this program is co-funded by the ESF. We have another program which is also very important during this period, which is we have prepared the necessary materials for the training of in-company trainers in soft and educational skills onto an open platform specially created for this purpose. This measure, which is expected to prove also very helpful for us and successful even after the COVID period, was developed through an Erasmus program titled Mentor. And last but not least, as I said before, we capitalize a lot on the corporate social responsibility of leading enterprises during this pandemic period. And so many actions are offered without any cost in the context of CSR. So it's a bundle of different funding efforts.
Great. Can I just say thank you to each and every one of you who's been on the line. Just a quick note of explanation. If I'm looking down and not right into the camera, I'm still listening because I've got these beautiful earpods. And most of all, I'm following the stream and what's going on. And it looks like the Q&A part is actually being used also to share information amongst participants. So that is absolutely helpful to each and every one. So to the round, to Athanasia, Mario, Amanda, and Roberta, Thank you very much for your time, for your participation, and for your good ideas. And Mario also for saying where there are limitations of the new system and maybe of the system as it was before COVID-19. We will have, I do not see, but I assume that you're all nodding. And with that, I'd like to leave each and every one of you for this short coffee break time that we have planned now. We'll be back in a couple of minutes from now. So count for about 5 minutes. That should give you time to make a coffee or do other very important things. See you in a short time. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're now going to look in these last sessions onto the issue of managing the green and digital transitions to reach excellence. And we're going to concentrate on those that actually live it, i.e. those people that are learning, that are getting to know new methods, new skills, that are expanding and challenging themselves. Because up to now, we've had the systems approach, we've had the COVID-19 approach, and now we're actually talking to some of the people who are in it. And with that, I'd love to introduce two young people. Mayel Kerling, he is a VET learner and also trainer from Paris. Hi, Mayel. And I'd also like to co-introduce Marie-Louise Fuchs. She's a VET learner from a town near Chemnitz. She is a member of the World Skills Champions team, and we're going to talk about that also in a moment. Let me do the kickoff of our questions with Mayel. Now, Mayel, when I read your CV, and I still have it in front of me, I was actually reminded about something that I learned happened in the Middle Ages. A journeyman in any kind of trade had to go through this area of his life where he didn't just learn with one person, but then he had to actually go, in the true sense of the word, on a journey, go and work in different places, go and have different bosses, see and get to know different approaches of his trade, and then come back and bring it all back to the position where he lived. So you're specializing in carpentry. So how did you develop in the past, and how do you now develop other people in their skills?
Thank you, Connie. And hi, everyone. During my first year as a trainer, I decided to follow a professional training twice a month during a year. We had observation to make in class with the trainees and action to take in our work as trainers. For instance, I noticed a lack of autonomy and desire in some trainees regarding their career, especially with young people. They are a bit lost, they don't always understand the instructions. As a trainer, I consider that my role is also to help them to grow in this training, and this training helped me to do so. I found this training very useful. It gave me methods, but I'm also a very intuitive person. I don't always apply it. Besides this training, I also think it's very important to base my teaching on their own experience at work. We don't have a classic trainer-trainee relationship. What really matters to me is that trainees know that I trust them so they can trust me back. We exchange photos. I ask them what they do, the different materials they use. This is really concrete for them, and it helped me to keep up to date with what happens on the field, with new techniques, new technologies, and new materials. Another very important point in my teaching approach is about time. Everyone learns differently. You have to listen and observe to get to know how much time each person needs to learn. The more I observe my trainees, the more I can adapt my teaching to them. I consider it's a real plus to the training. Once it's done, everything becomes really easier. In conclusion, about green production, carpentry is a craft that uses a noble and natural material, wood. Material overconsumption is a major stake. It must be taken into consideration when designing a building. As a trainer, I try not to waste material and always teach them to respect it. This way, I hope to make them more conscious about global changes and make sure they adopt a greener attitude on the field.
Thank you very much for taking us onto that road. And of course, if we're looking at also a transition in the building industry, we see that there is a lot of attention on the greening of building, and therefore also looking for working with wood and building with wood. That's going to be a part of my next question, and also about your personal motivation. I'd like to turn to Mrs. Fuchs. there are two absolutely fascinating things about your CV. You are the member of the World Skills Champion team. You have to very briefly explain what that means. But the other aspect is you were actually a forerunner, an outlier, the first young lady to be offered an apprenticeship as an industrial mechanic at Jaeger. The question is why?
Right. It was not my young girl's dream to do a vocational training as industrial mechanic. It was a very pragmatic decision. I was 18. I ended my second school, and I didn't know what to do with the rest of my life. And my mother worked at this company, and she told me about the great vocational training program they have. And the background of my family is very it's full of engineering and construction. So I thought, why not? I applied, and it was quite a great challenge to be the first female person to do this industrial mechanic vocational training. So I said, why not? And it turned out very well. I had very much fun with it, and my results were very good. I was good in practice and also in the theory parts. So I got lucky to be a member of the World Skills Germany Champions team in 2009. World Skills Germany is a non-profit organization which acts as a funding initiative for international and national championships for young people that do BETs. So I was lucky to go to Canada and to be part of the championship, of the World Championship there as a poly mechanic. And this was quite my game changer for my life because it really opened up my mind. And we had the opportunity to connect with so many young people from all over the world, from India, New Zealand, Australia, from everywhere. And this was very great to see how they live, how they work, what materials they use, what techniques they use, what gadgets, and what their visions are, what their dreams are, and how they go forward to realize their dreams and their visions.
That sounds fantastic. And also, of course, it is not just young academics that do these exchanges. It is also those that are really good on the skill fronts, and therefore, by the international exposure, can get sort of personal benefit, but probably also bringing the benefit back to their trade, which brings me back to Mayol. You did travel quite a bit within France in different areas in order to really round your own work skills experience. But then now, of course, you're constantly developing your own skills, teaching what you've learned. What is your motivation? Why do you do it?
Well, in France, journeymen have a reputation of high quality and excellence, and I'm really proud to be part of this group. And I want to live up to it, to deserve this reputation. Being journeyman is one of my main motivation to keep improving as a carpenter. And as a trainer, my main motivation are my trainees. I feel very proud when I see them learning something new and catch the same passion I have for carpentry. I keep on improving my skills and knowledge to be able to transmit them the best of my profession. Carpentry is a very concrete job in which you can't cheat at all. It is not just about cutting wood. It requires smartness and a lot of thinking, as well as some manual skills, obviously. First, you have to design what you want to create, and then you make it with your own hands. That is very satisfying and rewarding. I also find motivation in the mere fact of forming a new generation of carpenters. I find beauty and purpose in carpentry. It is useful craft for everyone, and it can be used to build simple houses, but also artworks. This variety of experiences is also one of my main motivations. As I said before, as a trainer, I have to adapt to my trainees and find new methods or techniques, if what I first try does not work, of course. I adapt my teaching to what happens in class and to what they are confronted to when working in their companies. I don't want to impose on them my vision of things, or my techniques. I rather consider myself as a guide toward knowledge. To me, a good trainer is not someone that knows everything. It is someone that gives the keys, that is there to help. But essentially, the aim is for the trainees to learn by themselves. It's really important. This is also a very rewarding side of my job, and it pushes me to get better every day. Thank you.
And we keep our fingers crossed that that is going to continue for most of your life. Going back to Mrs. Fuchs, again, maybe the question about motivation, what motivates you now, would be quite interesting, but just as a brief thing. And then also, from what you've learned, what would you say to others, people that are in your situation, maybe, let's say, 10 years younger, that are looking for a trade, that are looking for an education, that are looking for a dual education, as we have it in Greece, as we heard it earlier, as we have it in Germany?
My motivation right now is when we go to the championships. I'm the team leader for the team, and it's always great to see these young people to give all in these few days and to prepare for a long time for their vision to be the first one to get a gold medal for what they do and what they love. This is very great. This is a very great motivation. And the things that I think are most important, or how to use a VET program, is to develop self-awareness, to ask myself or yourself, what am I doing? What is this thing I really want to do? And how can this affect other people or other things? And it's also very important to stay curious, to be curious, to stay curious, and have a look how things develop. Are there new gadgets, new software, new materials, and how can I use this for me, for myself, to serve other people? And it's also very important to go into exchange with others, to see how they react to things or how they handle situations and problems, and also to have a reflection on myself to see what is my superpower and how can I help people with my superpower. And I think that's very important for everybody, and also within a VET program. And it's all about the self-confidence, because I think the VET programs is for the people that have, or that they do a VET program, they have a very practical access to the world. And they are very important for digital and green transition. It not only relies on the ones with a university degree. And that is, I think, the most important when it comes to the question, should I do a VET program or not?
Absolutely. Thank you. And fascinating, both your life stories, your motivation, and how it all fits together. And of course, we know that there are hundreds of thousands of young, motivated people out there that could follow the same pathway, given half the chance. And if I have learned anything from your example, it's not just the actual pure skill, whilst you have to like it, but it's also the kind of attitude, as we've heard earlier from Professor Olesch, like, yes, I'm quite prepared to travel. I'm quite prepared to be open to new things and learn from other elements, and also maybe never stop developing oneself, whether it's in formal education or not. So with that, I'd like to say thank you to Marie-Louise and to Mayol for having been part of this conference, for having shared your story with us. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I would love to invite you again to participate with us in a Slido question, because on the way to our next interviewees, we again would like to know something from you. And the question is actually very specific. Do you think that in Europe, the VET systems are ready to answer the challenges of green and digital transitions? And yet again, we have made it a multiple choice answer, and the multiple choice answers are, yeah, we're ready, yes, but one or two elements need to be improved, not yet, but we're almost there, no, and there's a long way to go. And last but not least, relatively sad, the issue is too complex for a yes and no answer. So maybe we can share the Slido question drawn up, and the first votes will probably come in. Do I see any votes coming in? Okay, wonderful. And it looks like it's the same kind of people again that have been answering. We are just under 100, and we have, I would say a third of you are quite critical that we still have a long way to go. And then there is about 30%. The issue is too complex for a yes and no answer. Thank you. Next time around, we'll put the question in a different manner. And I think there is a 1% chance in this case. There's probably one or two people that are really optimistic about it all. And they are actually there and say we are already there. Everybody else is sort of undecided in between. So I'm just getting some information from my technicians that are sitting in Brussels. Could I just ask them whether our next interview partners are actually there on the line, as some of the messages I've just been getting sound like they aren't. Please forgive me if I stop talking. Okay, now that's wonderful. So that means that we can actually progress to our next session. And for that, I'd like to introduce Petra Jendrich and Tibor Döri, German and Hungarian, and we're now going to sort of have a policy question. And here you can briefly see some of the questions that were in the chat. So now, please, let's have a look at who is part and parcel of our conversation. It's Tibor from Hungary and Petra Jendrich from Germany. Now, what do they do and why do we have them online? It's quite easy. We would like to know from Tibor, who is the director of the Eurocontact Business School, a higher VET provider offering professional qualifications and MBA, how he is faring, how he is continuing the upskilling program in these days, what needs to be done. And as we've just seen, the audience voted, there is a long way to go. And Petra, I think I've just heard your voice. Could you just say hello?
Hello to everybody.
Oh, wonderful. And Petra is much in demand because she is the chair of the Vocational Education and Training Committee of the Standing Conference of the Ministers of Education and Cultural Affairs in Germany. As you may know, Germany does have a minister for education, but some of the authorities are with the Länder. So you actually need somebody like Petra in her position to make that difference and to make the link. So let's kick off with you, Mrs. Jendrich. What can we do on a regional or national level to future-proof the VET system, as we've said many times, in the digital and in the green fashion, and to make sure that it can support learners to adapt to the changing world.
Yes, thank you, Connie. May I say one thing before
Please.
because I'm a fan of the WorldSkills. And I've visited my last WorldSkills I visited were in Germany, in Dresden. But I have a personal wish. I hope someday we will have a European team besides the national teams for the WorldSkills. That is a personal wish of mine. So
that's great. We're going to take that along. We're going to reverberate it in the right places.
And
now to the policy.
Now to the policy. Okay. The vocational education and training is in the midst of major challenges that all countries face together. And that before the pandemic already. One of the key issues is the integration of immigrant young people in Germany. This is one of the key issues, which will be a focus for the coming years in addressing the continuous integration and inclusion tasks of VET. And with our diverse and differentiated offerings, VET creates the conditions for individual learning and qualification pathways. And there's one thing in Germany we are very proud of. In addition to vocational qualifications at different skill levels, geared to the needs of the labor market, all schooling leaving certificates awarded to general education schools can also be obtained in vocational education and training. This is important. Catching up on school leaving certificates or acquiring higher qualifying qualifications through vocational oriented courses not only contributes to equal opportunities, but also makes an effective contribution to mobilizing educational and talent reserves. Because the orientation to real work and business processes is the central starting point for the design of vocational education and training processes. And education has set a standard for the action and competence-oriented design of learning in vocational schools, also and especially with a view to constant pressure to adapt as a result of the development and innovation dynamics of the working world. This has created the necessary margins to take up technological and economic developments quickly and to integrate them into training in a timely manner. So the acquisition of comprehensive competence for action, and thus also the view of future professional, social, and private life situations is the central goal of VET. It's not only for the labor market, it's also for the individuals. Graduates of vocational training courses should thus be able to participate in the economy and society in a comprehensive and barrier-free way, and to be able to interact successfully in work contexts, also and especially where they are increasingly characterized by international references. And I'm done soon. Strategic fields of action of VET in the coming decade are in particular digitization. Hello, Professor Olesch. Digitization is changing training occupations on a broad front. The vast majority of training occupations now require comprehensive digital skills. And in the field of vocational training, these require a vocational shape in the different sectors like craft sector. We heard this from Mayol. Industry, Frau Fuchs, agriculture, nursing, or commercial occupations. And this makes it all the more important that VET can take up these developments at an early stage and contribute their pedagogical and didactic skills. This is just as relevant at the level of schools with their dual partners as it's for the state and federal levels of governance. So globalization, immigration, and the creation of a common European labor market are the key issues for the future of VET. And against this background, every employee should have international professional competence, which means a basic prerequisite for a successful global action of skilled workers is foreign language competence, especially in a professional context. So, and my last quoting, the vocational education system must be better able than before to deal with different target groups and fulfill the overall social task of integrating the underperforming and disadvantaged, but also the particularly high-performing and other specific target groups. In addition to the individual right to participation and integration, this also has positive effects in terms of maintaining social and economic stability. Vocational educational and VET and the basic concept of learning in real work and business processes can also be used to target groups that are otherwise sometimes unreachable or only partially accessible to the education system. Thank you.
Thank you, Petra. And it's certainly a skill to tell a moderator I'm coming to the end and still doing a little bit more. But I think that's more a politician's skill and not necessary everywhere. But right at the moment, we are fine for time. So thank you very much for sharing that rich amassment and also the strategy fields. Even agriculture today is depending on digital skills for those who want to be successful farmers everywhere on this globe. So thanks very much for that. We do come back to you in a moment after Tibor will explain to us, talking about sort of sexy words, and sexy word to youngsters is, of course, the word selfie. Now, you have actually developed something called selfie, but it's not the picture of yourself. So what kind of tool for work-based learning have you developed, having been in the industry now for more than 30 years?
Good evening, everybody. So, selfie is a really sexy word for the youngsters, but it's just a short version of the very complex strategical tools for planning and managing the digital transformation process and change in the school. Well, it was developed by the GRC, the Joint Research Center of the European Commission, and used in many countries all over Europe. The first version was developed for the primary school, the elementary and the secondary one, and now we just run a pilot for the VET and the verb-based learning version of the selfie. The selfie itself is the 360 degrees self-assessment system for evaluate the digital readiness and potential of the schools and fostering the management and the teachers to use the innovative digital technology in the classroom, in the workplace, and of course in the home learning. The 360-degree means that in this context that all of the stakeholders in the learning and the teaching process, the managers, teachers, students, and the company trainers are involved in the evaluation of the teaching and learning process of the school and the web-based learning process in the company in 8 aspects. Not only just the ICT and the infrastructure point of view, because the basic concept of the selfie system is that the quality digital teaching is not just about the infrastructures, but it is a complex system of the different areas like leadership and the digital strategy of the school. Of course, the infrastructure and the equipment, the digital learning competency of the learners is not the equal as the general digital of the youngsters. The digital teaching competency of the teachers and trainers, the continuous professional development of them, the implementation of the digital tools, the digital content, the educational resources, whether it's open or not open, in the classroom teaching and the home learning. digital enhanced assessment practice, which is a blended way of the assessment practice in school, networking, collaboration, knowledge sharing, and finally the supporting system and accessibility of it. Well, if you see these 8 elements of the quality digital education area, evaluating the potential and the readiness of the school could help the web provider to adopt the digital education in the following areas. In my reading, allows the schools to see their strengths, weaknesses, and the area of improvement in digital education across these 8 areas in the systematic way, and it's very, very important, and it creates a single. Yes,
Tibor, this is not about coming to an end. Is there any chance you could get closer to your mic, or could you get your mic closer to your mouth? Thank you.
Sorry.
Much better. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
The second one is stimulates discussion about the digital teaching and learning in the school between the different stakeholders, the management, teachers, and involvement of the learners, which is very important at the moment. Open up debate about the future digital plan and compare and evaluate the whole process all over the time. For me, the selfie web-based learning is a great tool of the leadership for effectiveness. That's it.
Great, thank you. As I said, I'm sort of, switching between 2 playing fields. The live stream, the information I get from my other technical support, and then of course listening to you. And I find as a moderator, one is upskilling very quickly. One is getting 2 brains at the same time to deal with one conference. So no, that's just sort of a little joke on the road. We already have a number of other questions, and Tibor, thank you very much for actually getting to the issue of training the trainers, because that was a dedicated question to Petra. Maybe, Petra, you could just answer very quickly, how are you upskilling teachers? Because, of course, with some technologies, again, when they learned to be a teacher, the situation in the world was different.
Well, the upskilling is on the run right now. We have about 500,000 teachers all over Germany, and the Fortbildung,
further education.
Further
secondary
education is the key, and all of our teachers are in further education, because we have to train the teachers, and they have to be able to give good lessons, input, and besides, the role of teachers is changing in these times. It's more a role of moderation, and to help the students to learn in digital times. And both have to do, and besides the lessons they give, they are all, I'm sure, all of them have further education in digitalized lessons. We do so.
Thank you. Thank you, Petra. Can I just go back to Tibor on that issue as such, not towards selfie, your selfie, but is there a need maybe to even go one step below, i.e. to look at schools, and do we need a separate subject being taught at school that is called digitization, like for the basic skills that otherwise, certainly with a mobile phone, you just look at what your neighbor does and then you emulate it. However, there are a couple of applications that maybe youngsters don't learn anymore, like probably nobody learns Word or Excel, all these old-fashioned things.
Yeah. When you introduced myself, you mentioned the Eurocontact Business School, which is the store partner of the Open University Business School UK, and I work for a lot for the OUBS and learn a lot about the distance teaching, the supported distance teaching, technology enhanced learning, and this kind of thing. Now I work for not just the Eurocontact Business Group, but the Association for Hungarian Digital Education. We are responsible and very motivated. Yes?
Yes, thank you.
No, sorry,
Your
sorry.
mic.
Yeah. Sorry. Are you hear me?
Yes, now much better again.
Great. So I'm working for not just the Eurocontact Business School as a web provider, but the Association of the Hungarian Digital Education, and we are very keen to upskilling the teachers, how they can use the digital technology, mobile technology, and digital content for teaching STEM in the school and in the classroom, and of course after the first COVID period. In the current teaching, how the students can use the digital technology and mobile technology in home learning, because we have to recognize that while the knowledge and the competencies of the students is not good enough to use it for learning in the mobile technology and the digital technology, and use all of the possibility what is accessible for them. And it's the same if we concentrate and focus on the teachers, while the teachers are not good enough teaching skills in using the mobile tech and the digital technology. This is the reason why I would like to highlight the three different areas of what I mentioned before from the 8. One is the leadership and the change management of the school, because reaching the dreamed quality digital education of the school leaders need managing the change and managing the teaching culture in the school, have to manage the fear from the new and the unknown, managing the natural resistance, and develop the individual needs of the change and the individual needs of the quality digital education of the teachers. It needs a high level of trust from the management, involvement of the teachers and the students, support them to use the new technology, and management have to navigate teachers and the students success to success in the whole process of the transition.
Very right, may I say?
Please jump in.
And this is not a very easy job. It's a very difficult job. The second one is upskilling both sides, upskilling the teachers and upskilling the students. And we have to focus on the institutional level and the national level and the European level for upskilling both sides. We have to start in the elementary school, because the students never taught how they can use the digital technology for learning. And in Hungary, there is a lack of the formal teaching training about the digital education and digital teaching methods. And the third one is, for me, the developing and operating the knowledge network system. We could call the community of practice for and of the teachers, and let them and motivate them to learn each other and share the working knowledge. The working knowledge network is one of the key elements of the success in my reading, and it is the most effective form of professional learning I have run and lead in the last decade. It is not just just a learning opportunity for the teachers, but the supporting and mentoring system too. I guess, I'm very positive, without mentoring of the application of the new knowledge and the new technology, or use the digital content, or develop a digital content, we are not able to be successful in the transferring of the current education into the digital education. So you can realize that what I spoke about the people.
Tibor?
Yes?
I would like to stop you in your tracks because I still have 3 questions for you and also to Petra. So let me quickly get back to Petra. You were just quite adamant about agreeing with Tibor and say yes, yes, yes. The one question that's still sort of lurking in the back here is, do programs necessarily have to be national approaches, or could it also be regional approaches?
I think it has to be regional processes, because in Germany we have different situations. Like a land like Bremen, Hamburg, is something different with Flächenland, bigger lander in Germany, and we have regions who need access points, who needs other school buildings. They have different points they start from. So we have to do it in regions. But what Tibor said is, I had a déjà vu. It's I could agree to 100%. So we have the same problem.
Okay. There were a couple of elements that sort of came across when both of you were pointing out to the issues that you were discussing. It's this lifelong learning, which is, of course, a word that we've used 20 years ago. However, it means something different today. And it also is the speed of change has increased much more than 20 years ago. So this is for the back of your minds. I would like you both to tell me the 3 skills that both young person and somebody who is going to be successful in their career will need as skills to survive in the 21st century. And the other question that we have is just a remark, so I'll give you a little bit of time to think about it. We have a wonderful comment on the stream or in the chat box, and that person has said, we need a cooperation training program for the heads of the vet schools and for the heads of the small and medium-sized enterprises. They must learn sustainability management and reporting together. The transformation of the vet learning places begins with leadership. Now, let me come back to those 3 essential aspects to each and every person that is in that learning process. What do they need to do? What do they need to have, and how? Those 3 points. Maybe Petra, would you start?
Yes, thank you. Well, as far as I'm concerned, there are 2 things. We have to be open-minded, and everybody has to know learning never stops. You can't learn one profession and that's it for your life. Everybody has to know to learning a profession is just the first step, and learning in profession never ends in these times.
Thank you. And I heard you say earlier, we have to teach, or one of you said, we have to teach people how to learn, learning how to learn. Tibor, what are the 3 points that you would want to have everybody walk away with from this conference?
The first one is self-development attitude.
Your mic?
Sorry?
Thank you. Yes.
So the first one is the self-development attitude, being open to learn from each other. The second one is a critical reading, critical thinking, because we are in the ocean of the different type of the information. The youngsters have to be able to select the right one from social. And the third one, which is very important, is a curiosity, where be open for learning new, be curious for the new, and be motivated to learn it and use it.
Well, thank you very much, both to Petra and to Tibor, for having shared your ideas and ideals with us, for having pinpointed those 2 and 3 aspects that are incredibly important, definitely for the next decade, if we want to become a leading digital continent, just as much as we try to be a leading continent as far as decarbonization. And all I wanted to say is thanks both to Germany and to Hungary. And I think everybody should also know that your selfie is part and parcel of the learning place that you can access, the Knowledge Hub here on this website. So just click on it and then you can see it alongside all the publications, of course, from the European Union. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are for the first day on the last turning of our run. It was quite a run. It was not a marathon, and yet I think a lot of thoughts that we want to mull over the evening, during the night, and then start afresh tomorrow. But in order to do that, it would be lovely to finish off with a representative of the European Union. And we have had the Vice President of the European Commission for promoting our European way of life, that is Margaritis Skinas, who has pre-recorded the final words, and we're going to listen to her now.
We need to look at VET with a fresh eye. Vocational education has been particularly hard hit by the COVID-19 crisis. Yet, we have all seen during the lockdown that many professions that stem from vocational education, be it in manufacturing, agriculture, transport, or healthcare, have been on the front lines of the pandemic response. Having enough skilled workers in these strategic sectors is crucial to ensure our resilience in the EU. And for that, we simply must enhance the attractiveness of our VET programs. All the more so since vocational education will be of key importance for the green and digital transitions. Both transitions will be the transformative drivers of our recovery. But today, some sectors central to these transitions are facing shortages. Let's take, for instance, the building sector. We need people who specialize in building low-carbon buildings in order to successfully drive the innovation wave. And the same goes for the digital transition. Transition to a green and digital Europe will require training and reskilling the workforce at all levels across a wide range of sectors. That is the sector of education and training closest to our labor markets. And as such, it will play a key role in delivering the skills we need to successfully drive forward the twin transitions. We here at the Commission are fully aware of these challenges. To meet them, it is vital to make VET programs more agile, attractive, and future-proof. We need to create more gateways to higher education and universities, but also strengthen ties with the labor world by supporting, for instance, work-based learning. We want to bring VET policies across the EU to the next level, and our focus is now on delivery. As of next year, we will establish centers of vocational excellence to be world-class reference points for both initial training of young people and continuing up and reskilling of adults. The full rollout of the European Universities Initiative under the Erasmus program will foster the permeability between VET and other education systems and will allow people to shift between, let's say, from university to VET and vice versa. We will present a European approach for micro-credentials to make lifelong learning a reality for all across Europe. Let me also stress here the importance of Erasmus mobility for VET. We must encourage mobility of VET students abroad. Our aim is to boost VET learners' mobility by 33% in the framework of the European education area. We face today global challenges. We need to pool our resources and knowledge to succeed. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Vice President Skinas. You learn at every conference, and you also learn why you make certain mistakes. To a northern mind, Margaritis, of course, lends a female touch just as much as Andrea does, but of course in Southern Europe. These are perfect male names, so it is with a big bow and an excuse that I say I'm terribly sorry for having made that mistake. Now let's have a very quick look at tomorrow. The second day has two parts. You, ladies and gentlemen, will probably have already assigned certain workshops, the Inclusive Excellence, Higher and Tertiary Vocational Education for Excellence in VET, VET for Sustainability, Europass and Digital Credentials. We've just heard Mr. Skinas talk about that. And then, of course, the future skills need. After that, we'll be seeing each other again for a panel discussion, for statements on how to get green and digital together, of course, in the idea of the vision of a green Europe, a Europe that can be climate neutral by 2050, with people that are working both on the vocational skills and on their life skills, as we have heard this afternoon. With that, I wish you a good evening wherever you might be, and see you tomorrow.
Thank you.